I badly want people to embrace that best version of themselves. And that is the version that hides in the back of your head and says, hey, do this, do that. This is the thing that you want to do. And it's that ego that's protective of you that says, oh, play it safe, Andrea, play it safe, Jesse. And don't do that. This higher self knows why you're here. Follow it through, and she or he won't steer you wrong.
Welcome to a brand new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. We are getting off the Bruce train, though I'm sure he will come up, as he often does. And we're going to talk a little bit of everything. We're going to talk triathlons. We're going to talk transitioning jobs. We're going to talk about trying to bring us together instead of dividing us. My guest tonight is Andrea Leigh, and thank you, Andrea, for joining me. How you doing?
I'm good. You're so welcome. Thanks for having me. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so tell us a little about yourself.
I am currently a speaker, an author, a coach. I speak about the choice that we have to make on responding versus reaction. We meet people that are different than us. We can react to them and divide like the politics of the culture wants to divide us, or we can just say, hey, I accept people are different than me and we move forward. Doesn't mean you need to accept it or agree with it. It means you just move, we have a path forward. And that's what I'm all about. I like to use my story. I had a 30-year career in biopharma, and I said, hey, I'm going to go do something else. And I switched into the fashion world, and I've had a great time there. I still dabble in that a little bit. I've written a book about my last 25 years of my life, which has been so full and fulfilling. It's called Do You Still Like Football? Because it's based on a question my father asked me. And I love motorcycles, although they're all gone now, and we can talk about that. I love cars. I'll buy a new car and then sell a car, and I love that. So Thunder Road was played a lot in my first Corvette. And so I just got a lot of fun stories. I really encourage people, though, the real bottom line, Jesse, is that I encourage people, if they want to know the meaning and purpose of life, then they have to get out and live it, because that's where it's found. It's found in the living of your life. And if you want to do that to the maximum, you need to say yes to a bunch of new experiences. And so that's what I love people to do, because that's what I've done. It's panned out. I have a pretty cool life. It's turbulent at times, but it's been pretty darn good.
More often than not, I end up bringing up Bruce Springsteen's song Better Days. And usually it's toward the middle or end of the podcast, but you just gave a perfect example of, and the lyrics are, well, my soul checked out missing as I sat listening to the hours and minutes ticking away, just sitting around waiting for my life to begin while it was all just slipping away. I'm tired
That's
of waiting for tomorrow to come, for that train to come roaring around the bend. I've got a new set of clothes, a pretty red rose, a woman could call my friend. These are better days.
that's fantastic. So appropriate. And that I just, boy, I sign on the dotted line on that contract. It is very appropriate. And I live a life that where I told someone this the other day, that pain of changing, the fear that we all fear for new experiences and stuff like that, it's nothing like the pain of regret of getting older and wishing you'd have done something different, or wishing you would have followed through on a dream. And all you have to do is go to an assisted living center, go to a retirement village, and just ask 85-year-olds and 90-year-olds about their life. And they'll say, oh, I wished I would have. Or they'll tell you, oh, I'm so glad I did this. I'm so glad I did that.
You know,
That will really change people.
you know, when one of the things they talk about, they'll say, hey, if you had to do a speech for 10 minutes or you had to do a talk with no notes, and I always say, yeah, I could just, if I have the lyrics to Better Days, I can talk about it, because to me the song is about saying, too many of us, our life is, when I get the kid out of diapers,
Yeah,
then I'm going to be okay, then I'll travel. When I get out of school, then I'm going to enjoy. When I get that promotion, then I'm going to enjoy, versus the journey. And back in 2017, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. I'm fine now. I just like to throw that in there. But the idea was, I kept that idea even during chemo. These are better days. I have to, and I hate to use the word, but it's enjoy the journey. The journey is where it happened. I had a guest the other day said life happens in the dash. And I said, he says, do you understand what I'm saying? I know it. And he
yeah,
says, I went to if you look at a gravestone, there's your birth date and your death date, and there's a dash in between. You want to, so did I have an interesting dash? And I loved that story. And it sounds like you're embracing the dash, Andrea.
absolutely. Yeah, I do embrace it. And I just want so badly, I had a conversation at dinner tonight. I badly want people to embrace that best version of themselves. And that is the version that hides in the back of your head and says, hey, do this, do that. This is the thing that you want to do. And it's that ego that's protective of you that says, oh, play it safe, Andrea, play it safe, Jesse. And don't do that. This higher self knows why you're here. Follow it through, and she or he won't steer you wrong. So that is very appropriate. And I very much live that way. And that speaks for me too. If you gave me 10 minutes, I'd say meaning and purpose of life found in living it. Say yes to new experiences.
Absolutely. So I always like to go to the beginning. So walk me through, where did you grow up? And tell me about your family life. Because you're a writer, I'm going to ask both.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask about what kind of music was your family listening to? And also, were you guys big readers? And what kind of books were you reading as a child?
Okay. So great questions. Super great questions. Great family, grew up with the wind at my back, grew up with two lovely parents that I still have. They're older now, they're still in good health. I grew up with the wind at my back. There was nothing that I was discouraged from doing. We had the work hard, play hard attitude, work before play. So that still haunts me. But I just had a wonderful childhood and felt that family love. And I'm very blessed and very grateful for that. And because I know that's not always the case, but that's the case I had. I was a child of the 80s. I was a child of the 80s. I'm a little bit older than the kids on Stranger Things. So that dates me a little bit. And
So, so I always just share my guess so they'll know. I was born in 59. I
okay.
was born in the Eisenhower administration. So I am older than dirt. So I get you. So go ahead. That's fine.
All right. And listened to a lot of rock and roll was big in my house. Okay.
Sure.
So my parents grew up in the 50s and came of age in the 50s. So I had a lot of that exposure. I had a lot of exposure and an affinity, and still do, for Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
Absolutely have a chapter. The last chapter of my book is named after Elvis because of the role that character played in my marriage. My wife and I both have an affinity for Elvis Presley. So all of the growing up as a kid in the 70s, I was exposed to a lot of everything. So my mother was an Elvis fan, so I grew up with that. But the older brothers of my friends were Led Zeppelin fans, and so I grew up with that. And then
Yeah.
coming into my own driving time frame and high school time frame in the 80s, then I'm listening to Journey and REO and Van Halen and that kind of stuff. So I was into that. And then I'm more from the mid 70s in there. I was a Ted Nugent fan and still am a little bit. And so I still have a lot of that. I have a very wide ranging. And then the classical music came in as I got into the studying time frame of college and university and that kind of thing. So
Okay.
I had a lot of exposure to a lot of different, and still do. We're very eclectic, and I can have so much joy flipping it from Mozart to Metallica.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So how about reading? Did you do a lot of reading?
Yeah, voracious readers. I grew up with a mother she's a counselor. She's a Jungian, loves Jungian psychology. That's, if you don't know what that is, if your listeners don't know, it's the kind of psychology that encourages a lot of shadow work, those shadow parts of you, the masculine and feminine parts that we all carry, the process of individuation, that's becoming a whole person. This is the area I work in as well now. And so I grew up with that, a lot of that, and she read a lot of that. Now, my dad was a naval airman, and so he was in Department of Defense. So that gave me an affinity for military history. So I, as a kid, did a lot of military history reading, and that was what I was really, I bet the vast majority of my books was history. And then as I got older, I found Tom Clancy and that kind of fiction, and those are still on my shelf. I have a lot of personal development books now because it's my field and it keeps me growing there. And now I'm starting to borrow the Jung books from mom. so that's, and share books with my mother now, because now we're both into working with clients with the same psychology methods. So it's really cool how stuff comes around, isn't it? So that was that was the kind of reading and that I did. And again, there's a lot of different books, but if you saw what was on the shelves, it would be dominated by military history and Marvel graphic comics. I didn't mention that I was a comic book reader, and I still have a lot of those things.
Are you a more Marvel than you are DC?
Yes, but I'm a Batman fan. So you can see right
there.
There
You go. Yes.
I wear the bat. That's one of those no regrets, though. I didn't know that it would hurt so bad to put a bat on above one of my boobs.
My son was in college. He was 20 years old, and he called my wife, his mom, and said, "Hey, Mom, a friend of mine wants to buy me a tattoo for my birthday. Are you okay with it?" And she's, "You're 20. Yeah, that's
Bless
fine."
his heart.
Yeah, and okay, he got a Dallas Cowboy star in his back, right between his shoulder blades.
Oh, that's my team. I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah, and so and it hurt.
Those first ones hurt.
Yeah, that is. So yeah, absolutely. Growing up, and where was it again? Where were you guys?
Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And I still live in Oklahoma City now. I worked in Dallas and most of last year, but I live in Oklahoma City and have been around central Oklahoma in different homes and ranches and things like that. I've done some cool stuff.
Yeah, I live in Dallas myself.
Okay.
So we're neighbors. I always think it's funny, and this is for the very small college football fans. How weird is it to go to undergraduate at University of Oklahoma and then to graduate for Oklahoma State? These two rivals. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
How is it weird for you, or just it felt normal?
No, I did not go to Oklahoma State.
I thought you did. I'm looking at no. Okay, then.
I went to Oklahoma City University for my graduate degree, but
that's it.
Yeah, I was a big OU fan. Still am. So.
It was very nice. So, what you're growing up, you talked about you were in the corporate world for a lot of years. How did you get into that, Andrea?
That came right out of college, and when you come out of college in the late '80s, you're still in that boom economy and everything's rocking and rolling, and we're the same age. So that was the time you just went right into the corporate world and started kicking ass. And so I wanted to be pharma because the pharma people made money and that was a cool job to have. And I was able to get right in there and start that. I had a 9-year career. I took a severance package when they reorganized, which was real common for a lot of that time period with pharma. Hire them up, fire them down, hire them up, fire them down. So I did that. And then I did that for a number of years. And I don't know how much more you want me to go into it, but yeah, I had a wide range of experiences. It started in pharma, and I was able to work in a lot of areas and sell a lot of different compounds. And I'm pretty proud of the role I had. there doing that. I was proud of the compounds I sold and represented because they did a lot of good.
Andrew, yeah, I want to know from not necessarily the nuts and bolts, but as you and I talked about early, this better days, this our life's journey is
Yeah.
made up of our experiences and our what we learned and did. What during that time in that corporate world, in that world, what how did that help you become who you are now?
Great question. So my corporate stuff was just a real mix of feeling some ups and downs,
Yeah.
looking at it very successful. If you,
Okay.
but how I felt about it was I went 9 years in the industry and then I decided to take a severance package, being a single parent instead of taking a new role that would have had me traveling all the time. So I took a severance package and wanted to stay in the industry I was well suited for, and endured 41 failed interviews before I was hired up by sheer accident by a guy that had seen me a couple of times in a small prison town in Oklahoma and said, if you're working out there, you must be working. And so I ended up going on with him into a Fortune 5 company, one of the biggest companies in the world, and having a 25-year career there, and just tremendous amount of success. While that was going on, I was racing triathlon, and I got severely injured in hurting myself during a training ride. I couldn't walk. Triathlon would wait. I watched my daughter have a 1 in a million eye trauma accident, the kind of thing that you warn against when you say, hey, honey, don't run in the house. You might hurt yourself. That happened to my kid. I was the 1 in a million parent that had to deal with that. I saw a miraculous recovery. And I came away realizing we have these fragile little bodies. We're very fragile. And damn, we are resilient. And that we can really recover to do some great things. And so I raced triathlon. I met my goals that I wanted to race. And then I decided that I'm hanging up the bike. I don't want to get run over. And I'm going to go design. I'm going to get into sustainable agriculture design. I mean, something so off the wall. And I'm still working my biopharma job. So
Yeah.
I started designing properties for sustainable agriculture. And then I decided to buy one myself and implement all this stuff. And so I buy a ranch outside of Norman, Oklahoma, and implement these methods. And then I decide I want to raise cattle. And I don't have any experience, but I decide I've got a small property, but I want a lot of cattle. How are you going to do that? And so we better rotationally graze them instead of letting them graze themselves. So I did that, learning a method that no one in Oklahoma really does very well. And just really had a lot of these new experiences that said, man, this has given me so much life experience that I'm just going to keep it up. I had a wonderful marriage. I had a wonderful career. I had a daughter, an oldest daughter that had just gotten married, starting her own family. I paid off my ranch. So I'm clicking off all these things that say these are signs of success. But I didn't feel fulfilled. I felt I had all the signs of success, but something's missing. And what was missing is being the version of myself that you see here today when I was a Harley riding, cattle ranching, gun carrying guy. And I decided there's something different in store for me. And so I became what you see here today, which is this rock star female fashionista, speaker, author, coach, telling people to go live their very best lives. Don't worry about what other people think, because they ain't thinking about you.
Yeah.
And if they are, and they're more than likely they're indifferent to you, and you should
Yeah.
feel some real freedom in that indifference, because that indifference allows you to be a great version of yourself without a fear of judgment. And so I just go out and I talk about that. I left biopharma after a super successful career for the opportunity to lead in the fashion industry, and inherited a couple of teams that allowed me to be the face of a major brand, national brand in Oklahoma and in Dallas. And I did that. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to go back and I'm taking my story, I'm taking my message, and I'm going to the world and I'm telling them to undivide be the best version of themselves. Don't worry about what other people think, and they ain't thinking about you. And don't fear, because you just are not supposed to fear. There's nothing to fear. And so I have just lived this blessed, grateful life that is turbulent and has its ups and downs, but good grief, it's a great personal development story. This is what our lives are supposed to look like. We are not put here to live boring lives. We're led to believe or led to live wonderful experiential lives and not to worry about it. And we are told through scripture, if you read scripture, we're told over and over again, don't fear. And I take that at its word. What's written is, I'm not going to fear, because I'm not getting to the other side to say, damn, I wish I would have done this. I didn't know what that was all about. I wish I would have. So I just trust the process, go do the things I'm called to do by my higher self in the back of my mind, and not let that ego that wants to play it safe all the time control things. And I've lived a great life, and I'm just real blessed.
So I want to go back to, I could spend a whole, my wife was a triathlete. And so what level did you do? Sprints? Ironman?
I
Okay.
did. I wanted to do a triathlon, and I hurt my back severely, had to
Yeah.
recover and said, I got to start from scratch, because I
Yeah.
literally couldn't walk. Started from scratch, did the sprints, did the Olympic and then said, you know what, that's successful enough. I'm going to try to get in a half iron by the end of the season. I got it in. And I had a goal set for myself, of which I thought was pretty respectable for a half iron amateur triathlete, of 6 hours. And I came in at fucking 6 hours and 50 seconds. And it burned me up so bad. I said, I'm not I'm not missing a workout for a year. I didn't miss a workout for a year, and kind of ripped that one apart the following year, hung up my bike and said, I'm going to go ranch.
So I love that story. I've, Linda, when she was training to do her full Ironman, and it's weird how things work, I was laid off.
Uh-huh.
And it took me 9 months to find a job, which was incredibly frustrating, very scary.
Yeah.
But it was during her training. And so in a lot of ways it was blessed, because I got, so like, I could pack her bag. I had, Linda used to say, I didn't know where the kitchen was during that training time. And so I want to go back to, first off, you mentioned this drive for success
Yeah.
and goals and doing other things.
Yeah.
And where do you think that, you mentioned that because maybe you weren't being true to you weren't your true self, could be part of that. But have you given another thought about, is that, you think, really where it came from, this desire that, and go back to Better Days, if I get the job I want, then I'm going to feel happy. If I have the successful marriage and a wonderful daughter, then I'm going to feel happy. If I break X amount of sales club, if I break 6 hours in a triathlon, do you think that was what you were searching for?
No.
Good. Okay.
I think that what I was doing was following the next thing that was on my list. And that once I had, quote, controlled it, I lost interest. And so it would mean moving on to try the next thing. But I think in the pursuit of all of those things, that I was searching for something. And so the searching for something would show up in the pursuit of all those different experiences. When I, when the, when the experiences of a successful life were being checked, successful life is defined by the culture. We're checked off with great marriage, your kids are growing up fine, you've got a great career, you've paid off the mortgage. When those were being checked off, I still did, it was what's next. So it was still like the what's next thing. But all those did was clear the dirt away from that buried treasure, if you will, of what is it I am searching for. I found it because other things had been cleared away that would have kept some stuff suppressed. And
Yeah.
yeah. And so I don't think that I don't, yeah, I think it was just a little combination of how everything worked
Okay.
out.
So, like in the words, I still haven't found what I'm looking for, like the U2 song. All right.
Yeah, but I've now found what I'm looking for. And a lot of that could be facilitated by the gender change.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is also finding my being connected with my higher self. And that's
Yeah.
understanding those qualities of myself and why I tick the way I tick. That could very well be unrelated to gender. And
Yeah.
I very much bust the stereotypes on the gender thing. So
Yeah. Because one of the things, I was thinking when I have a guest on to talk about their favorite musician, whether it's Bruce Springsteen, Aretha Franklin,
yeah,
Cyndi Lauper, whoever, I will ask this question. Can you remember when you first discovered X? And if you can, you articulate what about their music spoke to you? Was there a road to Damascus moment? So I guess my question to you, Andrea, is this is a journey, but was there a singular road to Damascus moment where you went, wow, this is what I've been looking for? Or was it a small incremented, as you said, you're wiping away the dirt, like almost an archaeology to find that treasure?
on the music, I think it was incremental
Okay.
because it was very much an incremental journey. And it started with some Elvis Presley being played on it.
Yeah.
I'd go to the big box store at the time, nothing like a Sam's or a Costco, but the big box
Yeah.
store at the time. And I'd go to the record section and I'd stare at record albums. I'd stare at Cher and I'd stare at Elvis. And then I got my first Elvis album and I just listened to it over and over. And then where I really started getting into the music and playing it over and over again and dancing to it and singing to it, it was Kiss.
Yeah.
And so Kiss was fascinating to me, and I loved Gene Simmons. And so that was a big part of, and it was that, and that's just got that's a very driven music.
Yeah.
And I didn't really much care about the lyrics, although I found them humorous because they
Yeah.
were a little naughty if you
Yeah.
read the Kiss lyrics. But I really just love that. And I love the makeup and the
Sure.
showmanship of all that. Then that's where I moved into the 80s and that music and stuff, and kind of lost a little bit of interest in Kiss to
Yeah.
be regained later, actually. But
Yeah.
then, so if you want to ask, so if you want to know, I got a couple of good stories about.
Please tell
So,
me.
so as I moved into the 80s, that's where we got into the long hair bands, for lack of a better phrase, because you got Journey, you've got Van
Sure.
Halen, and you've got
Yeah.
REO Speedwagon. My mother was friends with Alan Gratzer's mother-in-law. He was the drummer for REO.
Oh, how
And
fun.
so I was able to get tickets to these. I got tickets I went to all the shows for the High Infidelity tour in Oklahoma City. They did 3. And
Yeah.
so I went to the High Infidelity shows. But then as I got a little older and a little more bold, I got the backstage passes and the backstage and stuff with the families when they were a couple of years later. So I got to eat. But everyone's, oh my gosh, you got backstage with Survivor and REO Speedwagon and all that. And I'm like, listen, Grandma and Grandpa were there and we're eating mashed potatoes, gravy, and green beans. It's not like it's not like you're picturing backstage and we're having a lot of groupie stuff. We're eating green beans and mashed potatoes with Grandma. And what a great story that was. And I got to meet the band. This is when I can say I got to meet the real band. And that was always cool. And those guys were great and still are. They're on the last leg of their performance touring
Yeah.
stuff. But so that's some cool stuff. And then I just went on with that. I have a regret. I have a really big regret that you're going to shame me for. Anybody could shame me for saying no to. I had a ticket that I said, yeah, I don't think I'm going to go tonight. I don't feel good. Queen, 1983. How do you say no to that? Say, I'd rather stay home. Huge. That's the one. When you ask me, hey, if you could see someone live, who would it be?
Yeah.
I said, I already missed my chance.
I've told the story multiple times. We had tickets to see Jimmy Buffett in 89, 88 when Linda was pregnant and she was sick. She didn't feel well. And so we didn't go. And then we had the kid in 89. You're raising kids, you're busy, things are going on. And every summer when Jimmy Buffett would come by, we go, oh, we should go. Oh, it's a bad weekend. Or, oh, we got other stuff going on. And we always said there's another summer. And when he passed, it hit me that we had never seen him live, and the summer isn't going to come again. So it's
Yeah.
similar to your, right? You're like, damn, that's one I should have. And so we joked about that
Yeah.
as we're recording this. Chris Christopherson just passed, and we talked about, you know, go to the concerts when you have the chance, do it. As you
Yeah.
said, when you have that experience, embrace it and try.
Yes, we had that in our current family not all that long ago
Yeah,
when I was told if I miss Willie Nelson and I had tickets like the next day,
yeah,
I knew I wasn't gonna get the heat for missing him because that could happen at any time with Willie.
yeah.
So I took care of that one once I got the ultimatum on that. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Am curious, and I'll ask you the same kind of question, except now musically, about your transition.
Yeah.
Was there a moment when you knew, or was this a gradual journey and talk about that when you realize, wow, I think this is the next step I need to take.
Yeah, it wasn't the long journey that a lot of transitions have where people know early in their life and it takes
Yeah.
them a while to come around. It wasn't like that at all. Now there's signs when I look back 25 years and say, man, I sure was into fashion. I sure did buy my wife a lot of clothes that she didn't wear. We figured out later it was my style, not hers. But it took us
Okay.
about 20 years to figure it took us about 20 years to figure it
Yeah.
out. No, it really went back to some of the things that are hidden deep in the recesses of our little brains. And so when I started knocking off those things, like I had previously mentioned, like the ranch and the daughter getting married and the paid off mortgage and a happy family and a great career and all that kind of stuff, and that those things weren't going to be put in danger by some kind of decision I would make, then and this was unconscious that the stuff started bubbling up. I had a great marriage, so we started being very intimate and revealing. Hey, I've had these thoughts, and I'm wanting to. I don't know what they mean, and so the process took a little while until I just pushed the envelope a little bit further. In what I mean was, what would I look like with some makeup on and all this kind of stuff? And then there was a point to where I really was open to what I might look like and went, holy crap, now. And so I put this on and I felt, oh my gosh, I've taken the costume off because now I've seen what aligns with how I feel on the inside. So
And I'm going to
I that
pause you just there.
yeah,
What I hear you saying is when you put makeup on and you're seeing your face, are you seeing is that the first time you're really seeing the you?
yeah, it's a great way to put it. I felt like it was the first time I was in alignment with what I saw in the mirror and what I felt on the inside. What I felt on the inside at the time. It's not like I'd been feeling
Yeah,
I certainly wasn't feeling like a girl as I'm riding my motorcycles and moving my
sure.
cat and all that kind of stuff. But in effect, those feelings were there to be unearthed later. I certainly did never feel like I was a woman in a guy's body trapped. I did not feel that way. So I try to stay pretty intellectually honest about it.
Yeah.
But what I ended up doing was just further investigating is, hey, is this just a neat little deal to play with? Or is this a really thing that needs to be investigated? And it did. I worked it out over a couple of years and said, no, this is the way I'm going the rest of my life. And at that time, everything was private until about that time I said, I'm going this way the rest of my life. And now it's time to talk to the family about it, tell them about it, and that kind of stuff. I did have some reconstruction on my face, so I did not look like this as a guy. And I'm pretty much unrecognizable as to what I used to look like due to a gifted surgeon and all that stuff, but I'm still pretty much the same on the inside, except I'm a little bit softer and a little bit safer. I'm a lot more compassionate for all of the journeys that we all have and face. Yeah.
Now, yeah, who did you said you were sharing this with your partner. Um,
Yeah.
who is that who you talked to about this first? And when you
Oh yeah,
discussed
because she
making
was.
this,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've been married about 22 years. We've been together 24. So she's there for this whole really expansive journey that we've talked about tonight, starting back at
yeah,
the injury and triathlons and career changes and stuff. We've been together and married for that whole time. And she was seeing some of that as we're starting to question, as
yeah,
I'm starting to question what's going on inside of my thoughts and feelings. Yeah, she was seeing some of the stuff first. She's a little bit more objective about it, not completely objective. She's
yeah,
married, she's getting ready to lose a husband
yeah,
in turn of a wife, and she's not a lesbian. So she was not quite objective, but she was a little bit more objective than I was, because it's hard to be that way and be the participant in your
yeah,
own. But she was seeing that. I then when we made the decision, then I told my parents where the title of my book is "Do You Still Like Football?"
yeah.
Because as I told my father, my dad looked at me and said, "Do you still like football?" And while it sounds funny, and it is funny, I laughed, but I laughed because I knew he went to the core of who I was and said, "Do you still like football?" Because it would have rocked his world more had the worldview of his changed due to me betraying who I was on the inside and my love of football than me telling him, "Hey, I'm going to be a girl for the rest of my life." It just wasn't. It was. He went to the heart of the matter and said, "Are you still who I think you are and who I know you as on the inside?" I said, "Yep." And we were good, and we're good to go. My parents are wonderful, loving, conservative people that just model Christ in the way they act, not in just what they say. And it was a great response. And due to that response, my transition was damn near over before it began. I just had some stuff to go through. Obviously, I worked for a big giant company who was progressive enough that wasn't putting my career in danger. And then just things played out. And now said earlier, I bust out the stereotypes, but my message to the world is, guys, go be yourself. Don't worry about what other people think. They ain't thinking about you. They're indifferent to what you do in your life because they're self-absorbed in their own. And just go to be the best version of yourself. And it damn sure doesn't mean you have to do a gender swap to do it. If it means going to dinner when you normally stay home, then choose dinner, do something new, and start changing your life and become a better version of it.
Andrew, what has surprised you the most of this journey?
That it just gets better, that it just all turns out the way it's supposed to turn out. Doesn't mean it's easy, doesn't mean it's not turbulent, but it means I get that what's on the other side of those tall, steep hills that are hard to climb, and I don't know what's on the other side, it means it's still going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that if I just stay true to myself and make some decent decisions and stuff, that it's all going to turn out okay. Don't do dumb. I've done some dumb stuff and some things like that. That's because I've lived. But I just look at my life and just say, I've had some great experiences. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Is come and be born here and have some great experiences and try to help other people, be a good example to other people, and love and not judge.
So I will probably connect you to some friends of mine. They do a podcast called In the Shadow of the Evening Trees, and they have been married over 25 years and raised their children. And he came out that he was gay, and they decided to remain married because they loved each other.
Uh-huh.
And his sexuality and her sexuality was only a minor part of their life together. And so they are In the Shadow of the Eating Trees, a very strong LGBT podcast. So I'm going to ask you that question. Talk about your family's relationship. It obviously sounds like they were incredibly supportive for you, and that's a blessing because so many people aren't. And that's so sad that there is this lack of tolerance about people who don't fit in the mold we want them to fit. If you don't mind, that was an awkward way to ask the question, but please.
Yeah, it's that the whole, whether it's our family, our cultures, our friends, they've all got boxes created for us that are comfortable for them to put us in. And so I knew from the standpoint of my family, I knew that my transition's selfish. Okay, from it's just selfish, but that's an objective observation. My family's losing the husband, son, father figure, and the life they envision with that person for this new figure. Okay, same person on the inside, but it's different than what we thought. So there's some grieving process that goes on there. I go into the work colleagues. Now, my colleagues were pretty much unfazed with the gender swap. They just wanted to keep stacking up the wins with me on the team and I was instrumental in that. But at the same time, I'm working with girls that are now working with a woman who used to be a guy 3 months ago. So some kind of compelled validation of my pronoun usage and the right restroom wasn't going to speed the process of acceptance on. This is my stuff. I just left the meetings a little bit early and make it a little less awkward when he went on break. And I knew that my friends and colleagues I'd known for 20 years, it's going to be a little tough for them to not say he for a bit. But everyone came around. I had clients, I should say. My clients, the doctors I called on, they were like humorous. They were like, no shit, you're going to do that? And I'm like, because they knew that I didn't look like this. I didn't look like a fem guy. I was, like I said, I rode my motorcycles and ranched and carried a gun and all this stuff. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm going to, when you see me again, when I come back after this break, when you see me again, I'll be a girl. And they laugh. And some of them gave some real support. Some of them were indifferent to it. And that we've talked about indifference. That's fine. And then some of them said, I got a lot of patients that have done that. When I started thinking on that one, giving some critical thought to that, the number of doctors that said that with the number of patients they referred to, that number was a lot. So that led me to the realization, after looking at some of the studies by reputable stuff like UCLA School of Law, said, shit, Andrea, 19,000 in the state of Oklahoma are living different than what their birth certificate says for at least a couple of years. That leads you to believe that there's a shitload of people. And I know, and that's as many that go to the Thunder games. I know everybody knows somebody that goes to the Thunder games in the arena. And so I'm like, okay, there's a lot of people. They're just pretty stealthy and they're not in social media and like I am. so I just really had a lot of really cool observations that, you know what, things are not like we're led to believe. I now have lived a life for the last 6 to 7 years that says we certainly don't. This certainly are not like we are being led to believe by the extremes on the far right, the extremes on the far left. People simply are indifferent to us, no matter if it's your gender, if it's your race, if it's your sexuality, if it's your age, if it's your religion. Most people are indifferent. That is the message. And that is what holds people back from being the best version of themselves, is they give too much of a damn what other people think because they ain't thinking about them.
Yeah. Why? Obviously, you've had a varied career, a lot of successes. Why did you decide you wanted to get in coaching and motivational speaking? What about this? Why was this a new calling for you?
Because it's easy to say because I have a story to tell.
Yeah.
But in that story, I have the ability to not only tell people to go live a life of experiences. Guys and girls, you do not have to gender swap to have an impactful life of experiences. Yeah. I'm telling them to just say yes to the new things Say yes to the thing that calls to you. Don't be worried about don't live in fear. Don't worry, and certainly don't worry about what so and so thinks about it, because as I've said numerous times, they're not thinking about you like they think they are. And so I have a deep understanding of what holds us back, including those fears. Is a lot of times we don't understand ourselves very well. We don't understand that the belief systems we operate under are a lot of times based on nonsense. We operated on beliefs. We have belief systems that we still run our lives with based on how things were in the little home we grew up in, where daddy was volatile when he was drinking, but great when he wasn't.
Yeah.
And mom was the provider and grandma lived with us. And so everybody's got a unique story. And if you can find out why we live the way we live now, which is not to our full capacity, and some of those reasons why we do the silly things we do are based on nonsensical things, or maybe they did make sense then to a little child. you can see how they might not make sense to live that way going forward. I will work with people to help them see that. Am I going to coach them to $1 million? I don't give a shit about that. I'm concerned about their soul, Jesse, because because I don't care about them being a 6-figure person. I want them to feel good about themselves and the life they've lived. And I've done that. So I at least can be a model for living an experiential life that leads one to be happy. Doesn't mean it's happy all the time. Doesn't mean it's not turbulent, but it sure has been experiential. It's been fun to live, and it's been a life of, in a competitive sense, I've won a lot of games. But guess what? The specialness and the meaning of, and the great part of winning is you don't know how good it is unless you've lost some. And I've lost some games, but sure makes those wins, for as a figure of speech, it sure makes those wins special. So
one of my favorite stories is Harry Chapin was that it was on one of his releases. It was him talking live, and he said he was talking to his grandfather, and his grandfather said there's two kinds of tired. He says there's the tired at the end of the day when you fought somebody else's fight and you fought someone else's battle and you fought someone else's dreams, and you're tired at the end of the day. He said, but then there's the tired when you fought your battles and you fought your dreams and you went your goals. And he says that's a good kind of tired.
yeah.
And I think there's bad tired and good tired. And it is, to be a little bit of geek, there's a line in Firefly where Malcolm Reynolds says, I may have fought on the losing side. Don't know if it was the wrong side.
Great.
Right?
That's a great quote. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great quote.
Yeah.
And I've come through just lately, actually, of another period in my life with some business things and stuff like that not going the way I wanted to and everything. And that's okay. It sure did not feel good and was disappointing, but it was just another one of those things where I said, oh my gosh, that's another turbulent one of those. We just hit turbulence, but you realize, oh my gosh, such good growth happens in the uncomfortable. And uncomfortable is where growth happens. And it's not always happy. It's a different way of life, but man, it sure is a personal fulfillment of living a good personal growth journey, is knowing, do you just want something that's flat road for your whole life, or do you just want some windy, curvy, hilly roads to test your car out on? And man, I like that curvy, windy road that lets me drive real freaking fast and unsafe at times. And then sometimes it just forces me to slow down and take a look at the scenery and what's over the edge.
So I'm going to be silly here for a little bit. What is the question that you get asked a lot that makes you roll your eyes? Not out of meanness, but just out of bless their hearts, as we say down south, right? Bless your heart, you're asking this. Is there a question?
Yeah, people will say, I'll reveal, people will say, did you go all the way? And you know what I say on that? I just sit there and go, what? I don't answer questions that, no matter how you answer them, they further divide us. Because if I say yes, you'll say, oh, you mutilate yourself, you're crazy. If I say no, someone will say, she's not all in. So I'm sitting there going, I ain't gonna tell you.
Thank you. That is a great example, right?
Yeah, it is. It's something, and people, it's pretty amazing how people will ask that question. And I'm like, man, you were asking it's because it's a question that they just can't wrap their mind around. And so I'm not going to help them any. But I show them how I really have developed that answer. And I'm like, I really like that answer. It's good. It makes them realize that, oh yeah, I'm not getting an answer. And that was a weird question.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the book. When's it going to be available?
After the first of the year. The edited version just came back to me. I was absolutely thrilled with it. it is an absolute, and this is not overbuilding it. It is an absolute page turner. And so we're going to look at, is there a way that we could or should slow it down? So, because it's just so turning the page as you get to the back half of the book that you're like, turn, and it's over. But it starts at my journey of saying yes to a lot of experiences in life. Like, I'm taking my young daughter, I'm a single parent, I'm taking my young daughter to the national championship football game. And then we're going to see Tiger Woods in the US Open. And then we're going to go to the Sea World and have a great visit. And then we're going to go to the NASCAR race because my company is sponsoring a car there. And we're going to do all these fun things, like deep into the race, be a part, not a participant, but a VIP, some stuff that I had access to at the time. And so why not do these things? So it starts there. It gets into my triathloning and the injury, and it gets into her injury I referred to, and it gets into the desire to raise cattle. And then the swap, it talks a lot about the gender swap and the effect on my family and relationship, and then what it was like to move from fashion to pharma, and I'm sorry, from pharma to fashion. So it goes into a lot of that stuff. It's really cool. And there's a chapter in there about, it wasn't anything about rejecting my masculinity. I was very strong and firm in my masculinity. And as we've gotten a little further removed, I look back at that guy and say, damn, what a strong dude that was to do what he did. I'm so proud of him because if it wasn't for him, he wouldn't have got me here. And he gave up a lot for me. He loved his motorcycles. He was a masculine guy. He loved his cattle. He loved his ranching. Now I could have done that too. But he gave those up because Andrea didn't want to really, I knew the inherent risks of motorcycling, but I had gotten to a point to where I say, I'm going into a brand new body and stuff. That's not something I want to further pursue, nor do I need to. But I wasn't rejecting my masculine side at all. I was just letting someone else drive the bus for the rest of the time. And that was the feminine side. And that's cool. And I relish breaking the stereotypes that culture has set for us. And I'd love to further continue that, because I know how people are trying to divide the culture at every point of division, not just gender, but at every point they can, mostly for their own political purposes, to retain or maintain power. And so that's the book. And then it's really going to be good. I'm really proud of it. It'll be out after the first of the year with a nice little launch, and something that it deserves, because it's a good story and it will affect people. And if people can look at Andrea and say, if someone said, hey, do you know who Andrea Leigh is? And someone said, yeah, isn't she that girl who used to be a guy and she turned out all right and she's got a cool talk and a neat book? If that was the answer from a lot of people, that's good for a lot of people, not just me. It means that my mission and my message is getting out there, and people, if they know those things, they're sitting there going, Andrea is having a positive effect on some people. And that's what I want. I'm not here to live a boring life, and I'm here to do something. And that's probably why I'm here talking to you, is because someone's probably meant to listen to me on here.
I hope you come back after the first of the year to help promote the book. We'll do a whole episode on just the book. All right.
Absolutely.
What should I've asked you that I haven't, Andrea?
Ask me that one more time. You broke up a little bit.
What have I not, and I'm going to give you in a minute how to reach you. I'm going to ask you the Mary question, but is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have?
Okay, you did. I am losing the connection, so I didn't really.
Let's try that again. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I haven't? Are we breaking up? Oh, we're losing. How about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, darn it. Andrea. How about now? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. Yeah, we just got a note. Your internet connection was unstable. All right. So in case we go, in a minute, I'm going to let you say final words, but I end every podcast with the Mary question. And what that is, Jay Armstrong is an honors English teacher in the Philadelphia area. He's now retired, but he would give his students.
Oh my gosh, Jesse, I can't. It's still breaking up.
Okay. All right. Let's see. How about now? Any better? How about now? Let's give it a couple minutes. I'm going to stop the video too, just in case that helps our bandwidth. How about now? Can you hear me? How about now? Can you hear me? How about now? Can you hear me a little better? No?
Oh, it's just I can't.
Okay.
I catch about every 10th word, I think.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Hang on. Can you see the chat?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask you the Mary question. Basically, as I sent you, do you think Mary gets in the car at the end of Thunder Road? Hang tight. I can't type.
Yeah, I can't see anything. All right. Oh, yeah. So go ahead and do you think Mary gets in the car at the end of Thunder Road? Oh my gosh. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe yes for a new experience.
That's a good answer, and I knew that's what you were going to say. All right. Tell us how to reach you.
Oh, this has been okay. So if anybody that's listening to us just would love to just follow me, would reach out to me, they can do that with AndreaLeigh.com. And it's Andrea Leigh, Leigh.com. And there are ways to communicate with me. There's obviously there's ways to communicate with me on there to contact me, but they can talk to me about speaking. They can talk to me about the book. They can talk to me about working with them on an individual basis on their own journeys. And those, I don't look at those as unlimited, and I would love to come back and talk about the book. That would be great. And again, it's AndreaLeigh.com. Reach out to me. I do come to Dallas quite a bit. I do styling in Dallas, and a way to do that with me as well is on AndreaLeigh.com. So I would love to do that at any time. I just love people, and so thank you so much, Jesse, for having me here and allowing me to talk about my journey, because it's been a cool journey. It's not always been easy, but it's been great. And I want a kind of experiential life for other people. It doesn't have to be like mine. I just want them to have their own experience.
Thank
So
you,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. I appreciate you. Everyone be safe, be kind. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Jesse.